Matches and factions catching action.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Finishers and Factions, the SmackDown. This week we come from the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington, for the 10th taping of SmackDown from Seattle. We start off this week with a recap of quite a big moment from last week, where Kevin Owens announced that he was having to go off and have some neck surgery and therefore would not be competing at WrestleMania this year, which is where we then got the viral video going around where Randy Orton came down to the ring. Two of them kind of shared a moment on the apron, bit of a mutual respect between the two, I suppose, and then Randy Orton went into the ring where Nick Aldis then informed him that due to Kevin announcing this injury that he would not have a match at WrestleMania. And as everyone in the world watching live anticipated was going to happen, Randy Orton hit Nick Aldis with that beautiful RKO, which I said brings back that viral moment from 2023 where Randy Orton RKO'd Nick Aldis and was fined $50,000 for doing so, and he actually paid $100,000 and told Nick it would be for next time. Randy just claimed the receipt that he had written on that check. So we then get a little in-ring section from Nick Aldis. Seeing quite a lot of Nick Aldis at the moment, especially in the ring as well. Which is quite nice. He's come down to the ring, he's come to talk about those moments and that RKO, and he was instructed to maintain professional, and, you know, he's going to do that because, you know, that's who he is, and he invites Randy Orton down to the ring, and yeah, as Randy makes his way down the entrance ramp and into the ring, Nick Aldis is staring him out the entire time. Now, if you were to ask me what I thought at the time, I thought we might have a general manager kicking one of his own superstars square in the plums. But he did say he needed to remain professional, and, you know, he was just staring him out. Now, this was definitely the way a professional wrestler would stare an opponent down. And when they enter when Randy finally slides himself through the ropes into the ring, they do lock eyes for a minute, and then Randy stares off at the WrestleMania sign. And Randy turns around and says, you know, he can tell that Nick Aldis took last week personally, and he should have known it was going to happen because he did pay in advance. Which is, you know, it's true, he did. And, you know, he wants to talk to Nick Aldis, because at WrestleMania 41 he doesn't have a match, and this year will be Randy Orton's 20th time competing at WrestleMania, and he needs to have a match there. To the point, you know, he's getting a little bit desperate. He even challenges Nick Aldis to a match at WrestleMania. Now, that is definitely an interesting prospect. WrestleMania every year does tend to have a bit of a funny match, a bit of a silly one. Randy Orton versus Nick Aldis would definitely fit into that category, I think. There's, you know, one RKO wouldn't set up a WrestleMania moment, but it would be funny if it did. Nick Aldis basically says that he's worked very hard for the last 20 years to get to WWE. He doesn't want Randy Orton's money. He wants his respect. At which point, you know, Randy replies with, well, you've got my respect. You earned it a long time ago. But if you don't deliver on a match, then I can't apologise to Mickie James, you know, for what's going to happen when that happens. So basically, he's making a bit of a cheap threat there. It's like, well, if I don't get the match, I don't really want to apologise to your girlfriends, mate. So, I'm not entirely sure if they're married or just together, but it's one of those things. At which point, as LA Knight would like to call them, we get two cross-eyed half-wits come walking out. We get Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga basically trying to say that Nick Aldis needs to tell Randy Orton to get out of the ring and stop embarrassing himself, because no one wants to hear Randy cry. And basically just says that if Randy carries on going, next week he'll be in the same boat as LA Knight, because Jacob Fatu is going to be walking out of WrestleMania with the US title, and while Randy Orton will be at home all alone. To which Randy Orton kind of says, I think it's funny you two coming out here trying to interrupt me. Yeah, but it's got these voices in my head, and they're telling me that I need to destroy you both, and it's time to fight. So Randy Orton has Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga step up to the apron to have a little bit of fun. Randy Orton sends Tama Tonga off the apron, and turns his attention to Solo, but Solo's just a little bit too quick for him, and it turns into a 2-on-1 beatdown in the ring, with Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga sending Randy Orton a bit of a message, until the current United States champion LA Knight comes running down to save Randy Orton, and between the two of them, they end up dispersing the two cross-eyed half-wits out of the ring, and end up standing in the centre of it, side by side, looking out over the front of them. And then LA Knight cuts himself a nice little promo, like we always get from LA Knight, saying it's the same damn thing with both Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga, and the fact that he just came down here, took his name out of their mouth, and stuck his fist in it, and says that tonight, I've had enough of this stuff. So tonight it should be Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga versus Randy Orton and the United States champion LA Knight, and then we are basically, when Nick Aldis is already out there. He had been talking to Randy when all this started. Nick Aldis agreed, yeah, that'd be a great opportunity. That match is going to be our main event in the evening. So our final match tonight is going to be Randy Orton and LA Knight versus Tama Tonga and Solo Sikoa. So as we jump from that section into the next one, we are shown a little bit of the current women's tag champions, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Currently sat ringside, waiting for the start of this gauntlet match to take place. We were informed that there was going to be a gauntlet match, and the winner of this would be facing both Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez at WrestleMania next week. And the first two teams to be taking part were Lyra Valkyria and Bayley versus Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. The idea of a gauntlet match is basically the winner stays on, and then a fresh team comes in at the end of every match, so to speak. And at the end of the series, the person who wins the final match wins the gauntlet. So we start off with Bayley and Shayna Baszler in the ring, and it's pretty much just a high-octane sort of start to this. There's quite a few sort of like arm drags and clotheslines and a lot of reversal style wrestling. And obviously when you've got guys like Shayna Baszler who have been former UFC fighters and sort of that sort of MMA side of things, you're not going to get the high risk, high flying action that you would get if it was, say, someone like Tiffy Stratton. But this one is quite an interesting start to it, to be fair. The first pinfall was recorded by Lyra Valkyria on Shayna Baszler, of which Zoe Stark intercepted this one at 2. And then a little bit later on after this, Bayley saves Lyra Valkyria on a 2 count as well. The first match is finished when Lyra Valkyria pins Shayna Baszler with a jackknife. So that means that Lyra Valkyria and Bayley progress onto the second team, while Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark head back to the locker rooms, which is a bit of a shame, to be fair, because they both had a good crack at it, but just weren't quite there at the time. The second team to come out was a bit of an unlikely team, and this was the team of Natalya and Maxine Dupree. There was a little bit of controversy with this one, as Maxine Dupree came out in Heart Foundation colours, as did Natty, but these aren't things you can just put on. These are things you have to earn. So rights you have to earn with the Heart Foundation. Natty married into it, and Natty, is part of it. And Maxine Dupree hasn't really earned that right, and she didn't really with this match either. So Natty started off with Bailey, or against Bailey, sorry, and took her out with a clothesline. And then we had a cross body for a 2 count of Maxine Dupree, and then a double elbow drop from Maxine Dupree onto both women, and then a reversed worm and a 2 count onto Bailey. You then got in here that Maxine Dupree locked in a sharpshooter, which Natalia really did not look too happy about. And Bailey reversed it up into a roll-up for the 3 count, which meant that Lyra Valkyria and Bailey went through to fight their third team of the evening, which was the team of Caden Carter and Katana Chance. Katana Chance got off to a really big sort of start here with an attempted roll-up straight away. Obviously, at this point, Bailey and Lyra have had to go through 2 teams and are both getting very tired, which is understandable. You know, this is quite a long process to be going through. And with each team that comes in, they are more fresh than or just as fresh as the team before, but your legs aren't as fresh as they were. Bailey managed to get an elbow drop off the top rope for a 2 count on Katana. On Caden Carter. Carter and Chance hit a keg stand for a 2 count. That keg stand move's beautiful. I absolutely love it. And then Caden Carter hits a corkscrew onto Bailey on the outside of the ring, while there is a 2 count between Lyra Valkyria and Katana Chance in the ring. That 2 count is then shifted into Lyra hitting a Nightwing to finish off Caden Carter and Katana Chance and win the 3rd section of their match. So that pushes Lyra Valkyria and Bailey through against their next set of opponents, which were B-Fab and Mishin. Again, at this point, Bailey and Lyra are struggling. They are 4 matches into a 5-match potential run. And I mean, they both look pretty damn tired, and they're trying to conserve energy, and they're trying to make sure they both get an equal opportunity to do. You know, one's not taking more damage than the other, and one's not getting as much rest as the other one. They're trying to keep it fair, and this one, basically, we see Mishin bounce a tornado DDT for a 2 count, B-Fab with a twisting net breaker for a 2 count, as Lyra Valkyria manages to break out of that one. At one point, Mishin goes to the outside to take out Lyra Valkyria, and B-Fab gets denied by Bailey in the ring on her move, and Bailey hits the Rose Plant for the 3 count. So that then puts Bailey and Lyra Valkyria into the final match of this Gauntlet series, which throws them in against Piper Nevin and Alba Fire, the Secret Herbis. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but Piper Nevin looked very ill in this match and didn't really look like she wanted to be there. Let's say she did do a fair chunk in this final. This final match was probably the longest section of all of them. And both teams gave what they had left, which for Lyra Valkyria and Bailey was pretty much everything left in the tank. And I think if you'd have had to have asked one of them to perform double duty today, or possibly do that title match today, I don't think they'd have been able to do it. But yeah, so as I've just kind of given away without even realizing there, this one finishes with Lyra Valkyria and Bailey wiping out, to be fair, and taking Piper Nevin and Alba Fire down. But I mean, they struggle to do so. A lot of this, I've got Alba Fires taking Bailey out, and Lyra Valkyria tries to take out Piper Nevin. You know, Alba Fire's throwing Bailey into barricades. Piper Nevin's ramming people into steel steps. I mean, she got Lyra Valkyria hook, line, and sinker on those steel steps. And to be fair, this match was really, really good. This was the for what it was, which is the final part of a gauntlet match, this is not what you'd have expected, but you definitely got a lot of good action with it. Piper Niven runs through hits a running senton at one point, gets a 2 count off that one. Secret Hervis pop a double team up on Bailey, who kicks out at 2. There was a lot of near falls in this match. Bailey at one point reversed a double team attempt by Secret Hervis and ended up hitting a double DDT off it, which to take out Piper Niven and Alba Fire at the same time is incredible, especially considering how talented those two women are. I've got here that Lyra Valkyria ends up putting a crossbody on Piper Niven, followed by a tornado DDT, and then Piper Niven just suplexes Lyra Valkyria to finish that one off. But I say it's not the finish at all, because Lyra Valkyria manages to pull Piper Niven off the turnbuckle and power bombs her into the floor. Drags Bailey in for a flying elbow, and obviously Piper kicked out at 1 on that one. And then we then get another sort of series of power slams. This time it was Piper Niven slamming Bailey, while Alba Fire takes out Lyra Valkyria. Secret Hervis had a double team finish on Bailey, but Lyra saved the day on a 2 count, which gave Bailey enough time to get out and pop up a Bailey to belly suplex on Alba Fire, and Piper Niven laid the big Scottish headbutt into the Irish lass Lyra Valkyria. The finish to this one was beautiful. So Lyra Valkyria slid into like a baseball slide to try and powerbomb Piper Niven off the apron onto the outside, and she's got her in the position. She's trying, it doesn't quite have enough, and Bailey kind of helps her out and manages to get sort of in the process. So then Bailey hits the Rose Plant, and then Lyra Valkyria goes up top to drop the leg drop onto the member of the Secret Hervis for the 3 count, which means that it will be, like I said earlier, Bailey and Lyra Valkyria going to face Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez at WrestleMania. And at the end of this one, we kind of get to see a little showdown between both teams in the ring. Obviously, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez holding their title championship belts, and Bailey and Lyra kind of going, I want those. We want them. They're coming with us. You're not going to get to keep those for much longer. They're definitely ours. But we definitely know that at the moment they belong to Liv and Raquel. And when WrestleMania turns around, we might see a little bit different. But for now, I think that's where they're possibly going to stay. So we start this next segment by basically being told that both Tiffy Stratton, the women's world champion, and Charlotte Flair were being disciplined for their actions last week, and Charlotte Flair had basically been told to go home for the evening. We then go into a sort of a recap on the Drew McIntyre Damian Priest incident in London, where, as Drew was busy talking about the fact that he was going off to the pub with a few of his mates, and pop star that was there, Lewis Capaldi, he walked out the back door and got brutally attacked by Damian Priest. And then we get Damian Priest walking down the ramp to come down to the ring, and as that happens, Drew McIntyre attacks him on the entrance ramp. Basically brutally beats him down. Security carry Damian Priest backstage, and Drew McIntyre ends up going into the ring. And he asks if we can all see him clearly now with his eye patch on. He says that now everyone is just seeing that Drew McIntyre, only tells the truth. That every action is justified, including dropping that Muppet, Damian Priest. He then says that, Damian Priest challenged him to a Sin City street fight at WrestleMania this year. And, that's a bit of a low blow considering that he's only got one eye. But basically, he He's going to give him the beating of a lifetime that no one's going to forget. And he says, "Do you want to know a secret?" And obviously the entire crowd of Seattle are like, "Yeah, we want to know a secret." He rips off the eye patch and he says, "I don't need the eye patch anymore and I'm 100% cleared," which means at WrestleMania, Damian Priest is 100% screwed. Now, McIntyre is irate. He's pissed off. He feels like he's been done unfairly an awful lot of times. The Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania last year. This has been going on for a long, long time. Obviously, McIntyre had just won the title when Damian Priest cashed in at WrestleMania last year. His Money in the Bank contract to take it off him. And then we've got, like I said, Priest eliminated McIntyre at the Royal Rumble. He eliminated him in the Elimination Chamber. Priest has had McIntyre's number all year, and McIntyre is not happy for it. And at which point, after seeing Damian Priest get his ass handed to him on the back, on the entrance ramp on the way in, he comes running back out, and he is going. And Damian Priest goes straight in and drops McIntyre with a clothesline, sends him out over the top rope onto the outside, and then bangs McIntyre off the steel steps. As they jump back into the ring, obviously the ref is distracted at this point. McIntyre goes for the eyes, basically sticks its thumbs in Damian Priest's eyes. And then as they get back to the outside of the ring, where Priest has gone to try and alleviate some of this pressure and kind of get his momentum back, and like, fuck me, the bastard just stuck his thumbs in my eyes, like, what the fuck? Drew McIntyre bounced the top half of the steel steps off his head and then lines the steps up so they're next to each other and then hits a Thundershock DDT onto Damian Priest. Priest is fucked up. His eyes are rolling back. He's not moving, at which point Drew McIntyre kind of reaches down, grabs his necklace and just rips it off him. And it was a brutal moment that was. And I'll tell you something, they've built this storyline up really, really well. This is one of the matches at WrestleMania that I'm looking forward to, a good old feud match. A good old sort of beatdown. There's always a match that turns into what this is going to be. Just a no holds barred. We're going to just absolutely destroy each other as much as we possibly can. And to be fair, I can't really blame them. It's going to be an opportunity to do so. Our next little segment this week was a little backstage segment with DIY going off the absolute walls. Well, mainly Johnny Gargano going off the walls about how he feels Tommaso Ciampa was screwed last week in their match with the exposed turnbuckle, and it was dangerous, and they should have stopped the match before, Tommaso Ciampa was thrown into it. Basically saying that it was a massive conspiracy, and pretty deadly stood there laughing at them, saying, it's they think if you think it's conspiracy theory, then that's fair enough. But since you guys have lost your titles, you've gone crazy. At which point, Pretty Deadly step off to one side, and we see Motor City Machine Guns come in, saying that they're ridiculous. And next week, when Motor City Machine Guns are going up against the Street Profits at WrestleMania, it's going to be karma, basically, for the fact that DIY screwed everyone over while they held their titles, and now there's no one there to help them get them back after they feel that they've been screwed themselves. Which then leads us into a nice little Rey Fénix vignette, obviously, as you should be aware if you're listening to last week's episode of SmackDown. Rey Fénix made his WWE debut last week against Nathan Frazer from Fraxium, and this week he is up against Beto from Los Garza, sorry. Los Santos? You can tell I've been playing a bit too much Grand Theft Auto recently. From Los Garza, where his tag partner Angel, and they are cronies Santos Escobar, which the three of them are Legado del Fantasma. This one is basically Berto. It was set up as Berto last week said after Fénix's match with Nathan Frazer that he could basically go out there and do a better job than Nathan Frazer and beat Rey Fénix. At which point Santos Escobar goes, "That's the sort of attitude I'm after. This is good. Actually, you've said that. I'm going to go and talk to Nick Aldis. Let's get this match set up. Let's show this new guy who's in charge here, and who are the top sort of top dogs in this side of things, especially with the lucha background between them all." And to be fair, this match, you got what you were given. To be fair, well, you knew what you were going to get, and this was basically Rey Fénix showing us that he is indeed a lot better than Berto. And as much as Berto keeps up incredibly well, we see a lot of Rey Fénix and his sort of like fast-paced lucha style. And I mean, there are some incredible bits to pick up. Again, I'll pick up, there was a kip up at one point from Rey Fénix, flying headbutt, a springboard stomp, like all these different bits and pieces. At one point, Rey Fénix corkscrews over the top rope to take Berto out. And it was such a well-timed corkscrew as well. We do it don't get me wrong, it wasn't all Rey Fénix. At one point, Berto got a super kick on Rey Fénix, which, he got a 2 count off, sit out powerbomb for a 2 count. Rey Fénix, though, I will say, finished it off really nicely. Just before he hit that Mexican muscle buster, we had a Frankensteiner, and he basically jumped from the left-hand side middle rope onto the top rope into the seated position and then flipped the Frankensteiner off. It was done effortlessly, but it was just perfection. That entire moveset was beautiful. He only got a 2 count off the Frankensteiner though. The same as Berto only got the 2 count off a sit-out powerbomb he hit shortly afterwards onto Rey Fénix. And there was a whole series of reversals here, and it was some really, really good old-school style wrestling. And I don't know about you, I've never set foot in a wrestling ring in my life. I'd like to maybe give it a go one day, but we do not need to see me attempt to try and do pro wrestling. It probably could be quite funny, but could also be quite dangerous. But at one point, I say Rey Fénix finished this one off by hitting the Mexican muscle buster for a 3 count. And as he gets up, he's so elated that he's won this match. He hugs the referee, which is not something you see very often in WWE, where the competitor gets up and hugs the ref. But it was definitely an interesting one. Berto gets told by Santos Escobar, who comes from the outside into the ring, to shake Rey Fénix's hand. And as he walks off out the ring, he gives it a quick, like, fuck's sake. And then walks out the ring and up the ramp to where we go into a backstage segment with Byron Saxton talking about Rey Fénix when Roxanne Perez walks in on him as she's coming to talk to Nick Aldis about getting a match at WrestleMania because Ava won't give her an answer about Stand and Deliver. Are we about to see Roxanne Perez perform at both Stand and Deliver and WrestleMania? I mean, it's definitely an interesting option. I don't think anyone has done it in the same weekend. I know some of the NXT guys have done their pay-per-views and then, taken part in the Royal Rumble, but I don't think we've ever seen one take part in Stand and Deliver on the one night and then go into WrestleMania the next night. We do find out a little while later that that's not going to happen. But she does end up getting a match this evening with Tiffy Stratton after Tiffy interrupts the conversation when Roxanne Perez says that she can't handle being champion. To which point, Tiffy offers Roxanne Perez a match this evening. And Nick Aldis says, look, I'll think about it, but first off, you've got to go and cool off. Which, I mean, it was a very heated conversation. I can understand why you'd want that to happen. And you don't want to be making heated decisions, especially when you are holding the women's championship. Our next step into SmackDown was a brief history of the friendship between CM Punk and Paul Heyman. Basically, starting back when CM Punk was sent to OVW down in Kentucky, at the start of his sort of tenure with WWE, and just kind of going back through sort of what's happened over the years from Paul Heyman, ultimately predicting that CM Punk would be a WrestleMania main eventer, which is something he's going to be doing this year, when he headlines WrestleMania with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns on the Saturday night, which is going to be a way to finish off the first night from the show of shows, which is I'm definitely looking forward to that one. From there, we go into a little bit of a backstage moment with Chelsea Green outside the medical room looking for both members of her Secret Service, which are Alba Fire and Piper Niven. Obviously, both of these women competed earlier on in the Gauntlet match that saw Bayley and Lyra Valkyria win and go on to face Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez at WrestleMania. When Zelina Vega kind of comes out and says, well, look, if you need those two by your side, what sort of champion are you anyway? And kind of wanders off out towards the ring, because our next match is actually Zelina Vega and Chelsea Green. This match was just a singles match. It's not a Women's United States title match in this opportunity. I think that might be coming up a little bit later. Now, this match was my notes for this match consist of 6 lines, and there is a reason to that. It starts off pretty quickly with Chelsea Green throwing I want to call it a veil, it's not, the fluffy thing that she wears around her waist when she comes down to the ring. She throws that at Zelina Vega and then sort of drop kicks her in the chest to start off with. And a lot of the way through this match, it's just Chelsea Green sort of calling out for a Secret Service, like, come on, where are you? I need you out here, I'm in a match. And while she gets caught out doing this once or twice, Zelina Vega does manage to get a roll-up 2 count on her, on one of the first sort of times she does it. Chelsea Green then sort of, whilst on the outside, throws Zelina Vega into the barricade and slams her head off the announce table, and then throws her back into the apron and up into the ring. And while this is happening, and Chelsea Green's out sort of on the outside, kind of trying to find out where her Secret Service are, she jumps back into the ring as the referee's kind of pointing to ring the bell, in which the bell rings, and there's an awful lot of confusion. We are told afterwards by the announcer that Zelina Vega has won this match due to count out, and it looks like, well, you can see it, Chelsea Green throws Zelina Vega back in on 9, but doesn't actually make the count herself because she's looking for her members of the Secret Service, so she actually loses her own match. But it wouldn't matter if it was a title match anyway, purely for the fact that champion's advantage would have meant that she couldn't have lost her title that way. And then we go into a backstage segment where we see Berto with Santos Escobar and Angel saying that the performance from Rey Fenix was the performance they were expecting from Berto. And, after all those big words last week, the fact that he lost is just a big sort of like, well, you're all talk and no mouth and no trousers, so to speak. And, Angel says that Santos Escobar says that him and Angel should go and congratulate Rey Fenix on a job well done. And Andrade sort of comes into the side as both Santos Escobar and Angel walk off, and says to Berto, backstage that you're a great wrestler too, and you work hard, and you should be proud. And Alberto basically tells him to mind his own business and piss off, which a bit unfair, but when you stick your nose into places it doesn't feel like it's wanted, that is not something you should be doing. And Andrade found that out the hard way on this opportunity. So, following on from this, we go into a VT from Naomi talking about Jade Cargill, and basically just kind of summarizes everything that's gone on from her point of view, from Naomi dropping Jade Cargill off that ledge onto the front of the car, and all the things that she's done with Bianca as tag champ since, and that now it's got to this point, and at WrestleMania, Jade Cargill needs to proceed with caution. And then we follow that straight into a response from Jade Cargill that basically says the moment is here, and the time has run out, and she's pissed at what happened. But the glow's fading, and Naomi's just trying to do everything she can to stay relevant, which, and but everything she does to stay relevant can't make her as relevant as Jade is at the moment. And at WrestleMania, a storm is coming. Now, we've already had the announcement last week from Nick Aldis that these two are going to meet one-on-one at WrestleMania. And this, again, we've got quite a few of these little grudgy revenge matches going on. But personally, I'm not mad at it. This match between Naomi and Jade Cargill is going to be incredible. I personally think it's got Jade Cargill winning all over it. But these two women are going to put on a show at the show of shows. And it's going to be a really, really impressive show. So from that, we get a nice big in-ring segment from, the man who's going to be main eventing the Sunday evening. This is going to be Cody Rhodes. He comes to the ring, and as he comes out to the ring, we are shown a whole display of titles, title belts made by different wrestlers over the history of the WWE, and Cody Rhodes comes in talking into the ring. He comes into the ring talking about these titles and how each of these titles represents a point in history. And for these titles and for the next 20 champions that come forth, he's trying to continue building the pathway for the next series of champions. And John Cena's trying to take that all away because he wants to take that belt and be the last real WWE champion. And while he's walking through talking about, the fact that John Cena isn't in Seattle on his farewell tour, he'd rather wait until next week to be in Las Vegas, which, is fair enough. We can't be everywhere doing everything every week saying that, Cody Rhodes does seem to be doing an awful lot of appearances in different places, and he does continue to talk about John Cena's remarks last week about his tattoo and what it is and where it is, making him basically nothing more than a common fan. And he basically says that I've got that tattoo for the same reason I'm wearing this suit, because I want to be someone. Within this industry, when you've got names like what he mentions as he walks down this list of belts, The Undertaker, Eddie Guerrero, even had the spinner belt there that John Cena had. And he said, a lot of people don't like the spinner belt, but actually I quite like it. But, at the end of the day, Cody Rhodes is the WWE champion at the moment, not John Cena. And Cody likes to call himself the captain, but when you look at the roster on SmackDown, he pulls out some big names, like Randy Orton on SmackDown. He says, there was several other big names that he mentioned, but Randy's the only one off the top of my mind that I can remember from this point. And Cody says, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Brock and I told Roman. And it worked. He goes, and I work best when my back is against the ropes. He says, when that bell rings, still be the champion, And it'll give Cena his moment to say goodbye, but John Cena has known his time has been up for some time. One day Cody's time may be up, but that title, when Cody's time is up, will be staying with the WWE and not John Cena. Which, I mean, fair play. The fact that John classes himself as the last real champion could be quite hurtful to some of these guys. But, I mean, to be fair, he's kind of earned the ability to call himself whatever the fuck he wants to within this promotion because he's been there for so long and done so much for it. Which is, I mean, I'm definitely grateful for a lot of the things he's done for the sport, especially what I've been watching over the last well, to be fair, pretty much since he debuted, I've been a fan of WWE. Not necessarily for that reason, but times have just sort of worked them way out. But yeah, his debut against Kurt Angle with that ruthless aggression speech was, probably around the same sort of time I started watching WWE more often than not. Now, this next segment, I was a little bit unsure about how it went off, purely because it is based on a video that supposedly went viral that I've not actually seen. But so there apparently is a video of Motor City Machine Guns who Street Profits are facing at WrestleMania this year. And I found this out because Street Profits were in a backstage interview talking to Byron Saxton about their match with Motor City Machine Guns at Las Vegas and WrestleMania. And the viral video talking about things they don't of Motor City Machine Guns and they don't care about and sort of bits and pieces like that. But Street Profits basically say, well, you don't have the title, so you can't care too much about that. And Mello and Miz come in and say that they think, I mean, Mello don't Miz are a joke anyway, so the fact they came in and say they think the Street Profits are joke champions and that they want a match because, Miz feels that the Street Profits are disrespecting a title that he's held 9 times with 9 different performers. And he feels that him and his latest hot shot in Carmelo Hayes have an opportunity to make him a 10-time tag team title holder and knock one on the list for Carmelo Hayes as well. We then go from this little segment, which I believe involves them ending up in a match next week, but nothing is confirmed in this episode, so we are going to have to wait until SmackDown gets to Las Vegas to find out about that one. We then go into a match between Tiffy Stratton and Roxanne Perez. This was announced a little bit earlier backstage by Nick Aldis when these two were having a bit of a bickering sesh outside his door while Roxanne Perez was trying to get a match at WrestleMania. Right, so this one started off pretty well, to be fair. And my notes for this one aren't particularly long, but the match itself wasn't particularly long, and there wasn't too many bits that I felt were really necessary to guide you through. It starts off with Tiffy Stratton hitting a snap suplex on Roxanne Perez. Not once, but twice. The second one, she decides she's going to go and have a pinfall attempt, and that goes for a 2 count. When Roxanne Perez is lying on the mat, Tiffy goes to drag her towards her, and Roxanne Perez pulls the apron with her, so when the ref goes to pull it back, she actually turns around and pokes Tiffany Stratton in the eye. Now, I can imagine this would have pissed off Tiffy time, and I mean, it would definitely have annoyed me, and Tiffy comes back with a powerbomb. The next step I've got here is Roxanne Perez attempts a moonsault, but Tiffy Stratton manages to get her knees up. And then shortly after that, Roxanne Perez hits a Russian leg sweep off the second rope. Now, a lot of these women are very, very talented when it comes to their sort of high-flying ability. Tiffy Stratton, we know, is a former Olympic gymnast, but Roxanne Perez is also very, very good at sort of these high-flying moves. And after quite a lengthy series of counters, which ends up with Roxanne Perez hitting a facebuster into a crossface on Tiffy Stratton. And as Tiffy's crawling to the ropes, you see Roxanne Perez use her feet on the ropes to stop Tiffy from getting there. So we do end up with Tiffy popping off a moonsault and getting a roll-up 3 count to win, at which we get Charlotte Flair come running out of the crowd after the match has been announced and finished. And Tiffy's up on the apron, busy celebrating on the turnbuckle. Charlotte Flair comes running out of the crowd and starts laying a beat down on Tiffy Stratton, throwing her over the announce desk. And basically, Wade Barrett has to step over Tiffy and get into Charlotte's way to stop her from doing any more damage. Basically telling Charlotte, look, you're going to get fired. Go home. You are not supposed to be here. And whooping this one out is just not the way to be going about it. Go. I've put in my notes here, I have a feeling we could end up with Wade Barrett as a special guest referee for this Charlotte versus Tiffy Stratton match at WrestleMania. And I actually think it could be really cool to see Wade Barrett in ring in a ref shirt. I'm one of these that I'd love to see Wade Barrett get back into the ring anyway. I think he'd be phenomenal. I know he's got no interest in that at the moment, or so he said, but I think to see Wade Barrett one last time would be really, really cool. But, you know, that's just my opinion. If you agree with me, though, jump on the socials, drop me an email. Let us know what you're thinking. It's finishersandfactions@gmail.com, or if you're on X, it's Finn and Fan Pod. At Finn and Fan Pod. You can catch up with both myself and Adam, and we will get back to you when we can. So we move on from there onto a Hall of Fame VT for the class of 2025. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this, even though you feel this is probably something I should go into. The reason not is Adam is currently recording a bonus episode for you guys, all about the Hall of Fame class of 2025, the people that are in it, the match that's in it, and everything Hall of Fame related. So if you want to check that out, I know I definitely will be. That will be released the day the Hall of Fame is announced officially. We move on from that little VT, which Adam is going to discuss more with you in that episode, into a recap of CM Punk and why, it basically just CM Punk saying he wants Paul Heyman in his corner. And then after the beatdown that Seth Rollins gives CM Punk, and then when Paul Heyman's busy checking to see if Punk's alright, and Rollins goes to curb stomp him, but does it just shy enough to be able to make him shit his pants and then go, "You owe me a favour now," which is a little bit more build up to that main event of the Saturday night between Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk. So at this point, we find out which matches are, what for the WrestleMania and what day we are getting each match. So as I said, the main event of the Saturday night is CM Punk with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. Also on the Saturday, we will see Naomi versus Jade Cargill, War Raiders versus New Day for the tag team titles. Rey Mysterio is going one-on-one with El Grande Americano. We will see LA Knight defend his United States Championship against the Samoan Werewolf, Jacob Fatu. You know what I mean? We will also see Tiffy Stratton go up against Charlotte Flair for that women's title. And we will say, not quite WrestleMania main event, Jey Uso go up against Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. Yeet. We are going to Yeet Vegas, and it is going to be incredible. So yes, that is the breakdown for the Saturday night of WrestleMania. So it's WrestleMania Night 1. WrestleMania Night 2, the main event, we have John Cena and Cody Rhodes for the undisputed world title. We will see Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky versus Bianca Belair in a triple threat for Io's women's title. AJ Styles will be going up against Logan Paul in a singles match. We will then see Bron Breakker defend his Intercontinental title against Dirty Dominic Mysterio, Penta, and Finn Balor in a fatal four-way. We have Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest in a Sin City street fight. And Bayley and the Women's Intercontinental Champion Lyra Valkyria will be going up against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez for the Women's Tag Championships. So there's a few matches that haven't made sort of the main WrestleMania show that will definitely be on the pre-show. That one, of course, will be Street Profits versus Motor City Machine Guns for the tag titles. I don't think we have a match for Chelsea Green defending her Women's United States Championship at the moment. Yeah, there's a few matches that wouldn't have made it to this card, which is unfortunate, but the pre-show is still a really, really good thing to watch. So I know we've got a lot of wrestling coming up. There is a lot of episodes of Finishes and Factions coming up. So if you don't have the time to watch it, but you're on the time to listen, we will be keeping you up to date as quickly as we possibly can. You will just have to bear with us. This is the busiest weekend in WWE programming, and it is literally just myself and Adam. We have no production team. It is down to just us, so it will take us a little bit of time as I work weekends and Adam is also working weekends every other weekend, and I'm not sure how it falls for him this week. So that is our lineup for WrestleMania, and to be fair, I think that is a very impressive lineup, and there's some matches there that I'm really looking forward to. But we will talk more about that over the course of WrestleMania weekend, which starts in just 7 days. So, as we jump into our main event of the evening, which was Randy Orton and LA Knight teaming up against the Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga. So this match was set up from our opening promo. And before we get into the meat and veg on this one, we are basically informed that the 2003 WrestleMania was held in Seattle. Now, I had to do some research. The WrestleMania in 2003 was WrestleMania 19, which of course had that legendary match for all the wrong reasons. It was the botch of the century when Brock Lesnar fucked up that shooting star press and almost broke his own neck against Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship, where if Kurt Angle was disqualified or counted out, he would still lose his title. I'm guessing that was a stipulation on that one. But as we get back into this one, it's Tama Tonga and LA Knight who start off the match, and basically LA Knight is having a cheeky little look at Solo Sikoa when Tama Tonga gets his the start off with a cheeky little sort of beatdown in. LA Knight then throws Solo Sikoa off the apron and then sends Tama Tonga the same way. We then see Randy Orton come in. He starts off with a clothesline, that scoop, snap, power slam that he hits on both Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga, and then the draping DDT on Solo Sikoa. We do see what turns out to be an RKO attempt from Randy Orton on Tama Tonga, but Tama intercepts it and basically ends up with Solo Sikoa dropping a very dirty Samoan drop onto Randy. At which point Solo then locks in a chokehold on Randy, which Randy basically reverses this one with a good old angle slam style move, which was always nice. You get to see Randy Orton display some incredible power against some of these bigger sort of like superstars, but Solo Sikoa is definitely a monster himself. We see LA Knight hit a cheeky little neck breaker from behind on Solo Sikoa, and then a power slam onto Tama Tonga as he goes up top for that elbow drop, and finishes off with a 2 count. At which point Solo Sikoa ends up landing a Samoan spike on the United States champion, and Randy Orton basically throws him out of the ring. While lining up for Tama Tonga to eat one of the nastiest RKOs I've seen in a little while. Nick Aldis ate one last week, Tama Tonga ate one this week. Those voices are definitely connecting in Randy's head. And after that vicious RKO, Randy couldn't get on him for the pin because Solo dragged him out of the ring. So Randy Orton and Solo Sikoa end up going off into the crowd and carrying on their little bit of a fight out there. Now, it does not matter too much about these two because neither of them are legal men at this time. The 2 legal men, which are LA Knight and Tama Tonga, are in the ring, and it doesn't last for much longer as LA Knight hits the BFT for the 1, 2, 3, which means that LA Knight and Randy Orton win this match, and Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga have lost out again. But while LA Knight is standing up on the turnbuckle celebrating, Jacob Fatu takes a page out Charlotte Flair's book and comes in and destroys him. There is a running senton, there is some running hip attacks, and there are multiple moonsaults. And at one point, you see him sort of just pick up the belt on the floor. Obviously, this is LA Knight's United States title that Jacob Fatu will be challenging him for at WrestleMania in Las Vegas at the end of next week. And the show ends with a final moonsault from Jacob Fatu and a head shake, which then brings me to the end of my notes for this week. There is no Adam this week, as you will have guessed by now, so it is pretty much just been me, and me, you, and SmackDown. So I will thank you all for taking the time out of your day to listen to me rabbit on. I'll keep you in the loop, and I will see you again for our next episode, which is Finishers and Factions. That's Monday Night Raw. Peace out, everyone, and have a great rest of your weekend.